All right. Are we live yet? I guess 7:05 is just gonna be the time. I guess I just need to deal with it.
It's okay.
Okay.
Just deal with it. Be strong, Steph. Just deal with it. It's okay. The world will not implode.
It will not. And
You
apparently
sure?
it will not. And apparently this is the time that it was supposed to happen, right? Because it wouldn't have happened.
Right. That's right. Divine timing's always perfect. Right. That's it right there. All
Cup
right.
is half,
Everybody's here.
glass is half full.
What'd you say?
Glass is half full.
Yes. Although I want to take the glass and throw it against the wall, but it's okay. All righty, my dears. I'll let you get a second in to do that sharing thing. I can't see a thing. Facebook is being, Facebook is being very difficult. I can see you on my phone though. Ha ha ha. I will not be thwarted. All right. So are we good? Are we golden?
I think so. It hasn't come up yet, but I'm just gonna roll with it and I'll share when it does come up. So
Let's see. Because I know you're here. Oh, you know what? My tags didn't show up. Well, that sucks. Run on over to the Healing Firms page and grab it. My tags did not hold.
Okay.
That would be the delay. But we can do this because we're live. Yep, we got one person on with us. Hello, one person.
Hello, caller.
Hello. I have a friend that really hates this whole part of the going live thing. And I'm like, you know what, honey bear? This is just going to be the way it is. I'm like, there's no other way to do it. We just have to go through this.
Well, what's funny though is when you have people who don't really have anything to say, right? And they're just on there and they're like, I'm just going to wait. Okay.
Yeah, let's not do that. I'm like, yeah, let's
not. There, I can't see you. And it's like, okay.
I'm going to tag you in the bottom. I got you. I don't know why my tags didn't hold because they were live when I first put them in and then they went away.
Yeah.
Okay, it's gonna try to tag your page and not your personal page. It's okay. Let me see if I can do it. That may be why it took them off because I'm tagging people. So if you go over to the relationship firm page, scroll down a little bit. Actually, if I pin it to the top, look at that. Pin it to the top, you can grab it and share it and all that good stuff. It should be right there.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to get started while our guests are setting up and sharing and all that good stuff. I think I got to share. Share. We're so glad that you would come and hang out with us tonight. We're going to have like a really interesting conversation, I believe, because we are dealing with one of HBO's hit shows by none other than Miss Issa Rae, Insecure. And so we want to get into a conversation around the unhealing of Lawrence. And I think this is an important conversation. I think that if you have any comments, any questions, be sure that you drop them so we can address them before the night is over. We're probably going to sit here maybe about 45 to 50 minutes. We don't want to keep you too long, but we want you to have an amazing experience. If you don't know who I am Stephanie D. McKenzie. I am the lead coach at the firms, which includes both the relationship firm and the healing firm. So we're talking about healing, we're talking about relationships. This conversation will indeed have it all. So I'm going to give my guests a chance to introduce themselves, but I am super excited to be sitting here with Sequoia Houston, who is the CEO of Mocha Stock, as well as a SAG-AFTRA card carrying actor herself. So I'm excited to have her here. And then I've also gone out and got us an attorney because, sometimes relationships need a little legal side to them. And that would be Mark Sonnier of MDS Law. And so I'm really excited about this conversation because it's going to be interesting and fun. So tell your friends, bring your dog, grab a glass of wine. This is the new style of the wind down. So if you ever watch Insecure at the end, they have a wind down. Well, we're going to wind up tonight. So let's get into meeting our guests that are here. Ms. Houston, tell them a little bit more about yourself.
Hi, so she mentioned I'm the CEO of Mocha Stock. Mocha Stock is a stock media agency that focuses on images featuring diversity and people of color. So when you go out and you look for stock images and all of that stuff to put on your websites and on your brochures and in your marketing, you can come and get them from Mocha Stock. And I'm also, she mentioned, an actress, and I've been doing that for a while. I've actually met Issa. Funny enough, when I moved to LA, I reached out to Issa. I sent her an email and I was like, hey, I'm moving to LA. Where should I live? And she actually was gracious enough to write me back. She gave me locations, all of this stuff. And it was just like, wow, because at this point, she had already, started to kind of build her name and all of that stuff. So it was really, really great that she did that. And I met her, so I've seen her several times when I was out there, and every time I see her, she's always so gracious. She knows who I am. She always says hello, so it's really cool. I'm really happy for her. And I think good things should happen to good people. So
very cool, very cool. And Mark, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, hey, thanks for having me. Again, my name is Mark Sonnier. I'm an attorney in Houston. I deal with I have a general law firm practice, but we have a really good focus when it comes to probate, family law, which includes, unfortunately, relationship issues, estate planning, those kind of deals, business organizations, and personal injury. So, we kind of, are able to do a lot of different things. And so glad to have me. I've never met Issa Rae, but, I love the show.
Awesome, awesome. Well, again, you guys know who I am. Let's jump into this because I don't want to waste any more time. For those of you who watch the show, you know that the character Lawrence, played by Jay Ellis, whom I adore, absolutely has had his share of ups and downs, ins and outs, if you will. And so we want to talk about that because the storyline, we've always talked about the show because the storyline with Issa and Lawrence comes in the tumultuous part of their relationship. Like, we don't really get glimpses. Well, we get glimpses, but we don't really get a full understanding of what their relationship is pre that episode 1 where everything kind of runs amok. And so since then, we know that Issa cheated. We know that he left the relationship. And I think one of the conversations that I've had ongoing around Lawrence is his healing. We talk about when we leave a relationship, healing. You need to heal. You need to clear your throat, but you need to heal. And so I promise it's not COVID, I promise. But we need to take certain steps after we're in a relationship. And so for the men, we don't always talk about this. What is going on with my throat? For the men, we don't always talk about this. And so I think it's important that we get into this and have a male in the conversation, because sometimes as women, we talk a lot to other women, and sometimes we need some testosterone in the mix. So let's talk about this construct of healing, guys, because I think one of the things that we have to be mindful of is that not only that healing exists differently for other people, and we'll get into that, but the concept of healing is subjective. And I know it's usually ladies first, but Mark, I'm going to let you jump in and talk about, what healing may look like from the male perspective.
I think healing from the male perspective looked like what it looked like for almost anybody. It's like it's an individual type of thing. It's like, what is it that you need to heal, and what's your practice? I mean, I guess even coming from like a sports background. I mean, as a younger guy, I played sports and those particular types of things. You get hurt, you get up, and you get back in the game. It's depending upon what type of injury you've had. I mean, not everything is hey man, you need to take 8 weeks and go to this long rehab and do all this other stuff. And then there are some other injuries that are like that. So I think even in relationships, it's like that. Sometimes you get a little hurt, you got to get up and move on. But if that it was something that's affecting you, at a much deeper level, and only you really know how things affect you personally, then you gotta, it's okay for you to take whatever time you need to heal.
Okay. Sequoia, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. I think it looks different for different people. One thing that I think that's interesting I had a long relationship. My last relationship was just shy of 7 years. And I think the interesting part is that when I got out of that relationship, I think when you break up, there's a part of you that's already broken up before you break up, right? So some of that starts before, I think. And then what you do after that is what kind of dictates how long it takes you to truly heal. In terms of getting over the person, that's one part of it, getting over the relationship. But then the part of you that doesn't get caught up on certain things and doesn't always look for something and doesn't do things that's going to hurt another person, because there are parts of you that still need to figure stuff out for yourself. I think that's the part that we don't really look at and we don't really think of as healing sometimes. And I think that part's important too. Not just, oh, I'm over the relationship, I'm over that person.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the part, in dealing with the whole Lawrence situation, Lawrence, prior to finding out about the infidelity, he, I guess, hadn't been working for a few years, but we see where they tried to rekindle their relationship, and he was looking, and they were looking at wedding rings and all of this. And so for him to find out that she hadn't been faithful, so to speak, that basically spun him completely out, right? He leaves, he goes to live with his friends. And so I'm curious, do you think that, okay, so there are going to be some spoilers in this, people. I'm sorry. So if you're just starting to watch Insecure, sorry, there'll be some spoilers here. Sorry. But, at the end of, I think it's season 1, they're trying to talk and she comes back in, and ultimately Lawrence takes his frustrations out on Tasha. And now we're off to the races, because never do we see the conversation until way later. I think it's like season 2, maybe it's not season 2, it's further down, but we don't ever see Issa and Lawrence have a conversation reconciling their 6-year relationship and what happened. He just basically leaves and, starts his in and out process. We'll just keep it like that. We're grown-ups here. And starts his in and out process, which, really just goes from Tasha to, I think, to Issa for a moment, and then Aparna, and then it just goes on and on and on. So my question to you guys, do you think that Lawrence's actions are indicative of not being healed, or was he just moving on from something that just didn't work anymore? Ladies first.
Both. I think that you can tell, particularly after certain things happen, after he went through some stuff because he was out there, you can tell that he had to take a moment to say, you know what, I can't be out here in these streets like this. I can't, I need to get it together. And he's trying to do that. But it took time to get there. And I think sometimes the thing that's interesting about having a long relationship, and especially in this day and age, you break up and life is completely different. Dating is completely different now than it was in 2010 or whatever it was when before I got in my last one. People are dating on the internet and people are fast tracking stuff and whatever. And it's just different. And it when you get back out there, you're like, what is this? And there's a part of you that's like, maybe I should try it out and see what's going on. And I think that's healthy too. And maybe that is also a part of the healing. Everybody does things differently. And the thing, I guess, is just trying not to hurt people in the process.
Definitely. Now, Mark, let me ask you a question. So are you telling me possibly, healing coach, relationship coach that I am, are you possibly telling me that Lawrence could have left his relationship with Issa, got into other relationships with other women, and went straight into those relationships from his breakup? Are you telling me that he could absolutely be in a healed state making these decisions?
Yeah. I think he could be. It just really depends. I mean, because as I remember Lawrence, and sometimes as you're asking these questions, I'm like, well, do I really watch the show? Because I guess I'm seeing something a little different, you know, because I'm like, 'cause I seem to remember that Lawrence, you know, was still trying to find like a job or trying to get his direction or whatever. So there was a lot of things that were going on while he was in this relationship. You know, never did they kind of show, or at least to me, Lawrence going into like a deep depression. You know, he's not missing anything else. He's kind of moving on and doing and going on with his life. And so I think that, you know, we heal differently. Maybe for Lawrence, he felt like the relationship could have been going somewhere, but it was interrupted and it didn't really get to go where it needed to go. So how he reacted wasn't as if, oh man, I just lost the best relationship I've ever had in my life, and you know, I can't really move on, and you know, I'm going through this whole, you know, mental thing where my life is now drained. You know, he just kind of picked up and just kind of, you know, moved on. You know, closed mouth don't get fed.
Well, that's true too. And then, so he not only moves out, right, but he moves in with Chad. I love Chad, y'all. I really do. I find myself sipping drinks the way he does. I love Chad. I really do. The character Chad in the show is hilarious to me. But I wonder if he would have moved in with someone, because Chad was very much like, Rent's going to be out here smashing random chicks. He was like, go Rent, go Rent. And it's like, okay, do you think that if he would have been around someone that was like, hey man, you know, maybe you want to take some time, maybe you don't want to be with Tasha right now, because he went right into the relation, literally right into the relationship with Tasha, and no time. And going back to what Sequoia said about sometimes when a relationship ends, it has ended before it actually is terminated, before it actually breaks. I can definitely agree with that. But I can't help but to wonder if Lawrence would have been with friends that were more like, hey, you know, take some time for yourself, get your bearings straight versus get out in these streets. Would that have had any bearing on the actions that he took? I'm just curious about your thoughts.
Well, so here's what I would say to that, because I think part of it is, okay, from a TV perspective, that guy might not make good TV at this particular point. But from a real life perspective, he probably had a guy like that was counter to Chad, you know, because of the type of people that he may have in his circle. So I think overall, you look at like Chad got a deal from Chad's perspective as well with all the stuff that he's going, because at the end of the day, Chad's relationship seemed to be at least working a little more than Lawrence's relationship did. So, you know, maybe Chad got a point.
I think another thing is that we look at the relationship with Tasha, right? And it's possible that just wasn't the relationship for him either. And in that, like, we look at how he treated her and all that, but maybe that just wasn't what he needed at that particular time. And maybe if he found what he needed, he could have still worked through what he was working through, but he could have done it within the confines of the relationship that he needed and being able to take the time that he needed to heal in the way that he needed to heal. I don't think that they have to be mutually exclusive ideas. And I think sometimes you can enter a new relationship and you can start to learn things, learn better ways. You can look at your mistakes and figure out how to move forward. And you're actually actively in the process of doing that. I can't learn how to communicate with somebody if I don't have anybody to communicate with. I can't understand what my triggers are. I don't have anything to be triggered by. I can't look at my growth. Like, I had a situation recently where I asked a question to somebody, and it wasn't a judgmental question. It was just like, hey, why do you do such and such? And the way I asked it, he asked why I asked. I explained why I asked. And the way I explained it was, I'm just asking. I just thought it was interesting. I just wanted to know. Because of the way I asked, because I didn't come at him like, why don't you, because I don't like this. And I didn't come at him like that. So he Right. So I think he received what I was saying in a way of, oh, she just truly wants to know. Right. But I think back to asking similar questions in a past relationship. And it was like, well, I mean, if it ain't a big deal, why are you even asking? You shouldn't, if it's not a big deal, just leave it alone. And so it put me in a place where I started to stifle my own questions, because I was like, well, is it a big deal? It's not really that big of a deal, and it's going to cause an issue. And, maybe I don't want to ruffle any feathers, so I just won't, right? But that's not something I could have learned that I had gotten past and I'd worked through without having someone in that kind of similar role to see, oh, I grew in that area. Wow. Okay.
Absolutely. I think, there's something that I've said within the context of relationships. I don't always think that we have to heal apart from a relationship. Like you have to take 6 months and unplug, and we've got some comments and I'm going to get to them in just a second, that you have to unplug and go on a sabbatical and all of this. I do think, though, the only way that a healing relationship can work is if one party is ahead of the other. So, you're in a particular place. I just feel like 2 3-legged chairs just not going to work. They're going to fall in on each other. But if one maybe slightly 3-legged chair trying to grow that 4th leg, and then you got one wobbly 4th leg on the other chair, we can stand up properly. We can do some things. And I feel like the only way that works is for one person to be more advanced than the other, because that person will then allow you, or even if it's you, if it's you, then you're allowing them to come into their understanding because you've already been there. And if it's not you, then they're allowing you to come into the understanding. But if we both need to have understanding, that's kind of counterproductive. I don't know. That's just a thought that I've had over the last few months, maybe even the last couple of years, how that actually can work. So I'm glad that you bring that up. We have a comment I want to get to from Bernadette P. Smith, and she says, men are not taught that it's okay to mourn a relationship in a healthy way. And I'm like, Mark, are men not taught to mourn the end of a relationship?
No, men mourn the end of relationships all the time. I mean, it's different for everybody. What's healthy for one is unhealthy for someone else. I mean, it's kind of like, and excuse me if I use too many sports analogies, and that just seems to be kind of more manly like, but I mean, like, remember when, like, if you look at like health charts, right? You look at health charts that tell you that some guy who's like 6'3" and 300 pounds is morbidly obese. But when you go to the NFL, that 6'3", 300-pound guy is a beast and a finely tuned, athletic machine, that's running, 40 numbers at a much higher speed than somebody who doesn't fit that deal and who doesn't necessarily have that training. So life is the same. Everybody's different in how they heal and how they react to certain things. And just because it doesn't look identifiable to somebody else doesn't mean it's not happening.
That's a super duper great point.
Sequoia, is that I don't think men have the same support systems that women do. And so a breakup is far different for a man than a woman. If I break up with somebody, my girls come around me, they're taking me out, they're letting me cry, they're letting me be as emo as I want to be. Whereas if a guy breaks up with somebody, it's like, man, get over that, man. She ain't that, like, even with recently, that man, she was out there being a hoe, whatever. And it's like, right, she made a mistake. He made a decision that wasn't in the best interest of the relationship, right?
Right.
But I think it would have been if he had a better support system in the same way that we have that emotional support system. I think that might have been a little bit different too.
Well,
see, so maybe can I add on to that?
Yeah.
It's different because you and your girls, y'all go out and y'all do that, but guys have the same thing. It may be in a gym, it may be, we may be lifting weights, it may be on a basketball court or a softball field or something that we get together and we congregate the way that we do in a way that's for that particular individual going through whatever. So if we got a homeboy that just went through a divorce, or a friend that's going through, troubling times, we may meet at a bar. It may be like, let's go have some beers, or let's go to a cigar lounge, or let's go somewhere where it's just going to be us, and we're going to talk, and we're going to have real conversations in front of other real dudes that we good with. It's not going to always be like what she does, then I have to go do the exact same thing, and my friends are the exact same way. It's just not like that.
But are you going to talk about what happened, or are you just going to talk in general? Because what I hear,
okay,
y'all will go out and y'all will talk. Y'all will have, be boys, y'all will bond, but y'all don't necessarily talk about what happened. Whereas women, when we go out, I can share ad nauseum what happened with my girls, and they're like, girl, yes, and I hear it. And what else happened, girl? Where I don't know that men do that same piece.
That's a really good point. I think that matters, because I think it goes back to what the viewer was saying about mourning in a healthy way. Because so we have the support. So we brought up a few things. I'm coming to you, Bernadette. So we brought up a few things. First thing we've got to, anybody who's listening to this, the first thing that we've got to take in is that everybody's healing process is different. Okay. And then, Mark pointed out to us that, just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. All right. And then Sequoia pointed out to us that sometimes the relationship is over before it ends. And these are all things that we know, right? These are things that we're aware of. But for me, the end of a relationship is a loss. It's a loss. It's death. It's the death of a relationship. And that does evoke a sense of grief and grieving. And I kind of feel what you're saying, Sequoia, about, are they talking, or are they just talking about, regular old stuff? Are they shooting the boo-boo, so to speak? Or are they really, walking through the muckety muck of this relationship? And I'm going to say probably not, although if we just throw in another movie, another gem, Love Jones gave us some of those conversations. And so I think they may or may not be happening. And Mark, you can speak to this as well. I think those deep, meaningful, what happened relationships occur depending on who's around you, depending on how vulnerable they allow you to be. Those conversations may or may not happen. Mark, what are you thinking? We've got a couple of more comments.
I think, men, just like women, we have, there's a man code, there's a man language, like it. But trust me, if my homeboy or friends or homeboys or whatever, if they're suffering in whatever deal, it doesn't matter if it's a relationship, whatever type of relationships, because I think the thing that people look at is the way you are with relationships, period, is how you're gonna be, even though those relationships, they change and those dynamics change. So the way that you are with people is how you are. So if from a male perspective, and Stephanie, I'm sure you know this, that as a therapist, when you have people in front of you and they're trying to communicate, you have to pull things out of them, because that's just the way that that's just the way that they communicate. And when they're communicating with their friends, they speak in a language that their friends understand, and their friends know exactly what they're saying. Their friend knows the experiences or whatever that they went through. It's not as if men are we're just monolithic when it comes to relationships. It's like we have the same ups and downs, ins and outs, and we have the same types of friends that we go and we talk things out however we want to talk. Now, it might be with a punching bag or something, but that doesn't mean that that's just therapeutic. That's the way we're dealing with it. But there's communication that's going on with that maybe only those two individuals at the time can understand. Like if you heard it outside, it wouldn't even make sense, because we're not talking in a code that's easily recognizable by somebody who's outside of that circle.
Absolutely. And we've got some comments that agree with you. Malik says it all depends on the type of male friendship they have with each other. Men, we do have those talks just with possibly only one person. So it may not be the group of girls that'll come and surround us, because that'll definitely happen. Let's see. Oh, I love this dialogue. I hope y'all can see it. So Bernadette was questioning how deep and vulnerable are men during those conversations. And again, I think it goes back to who is around you, who supports you. And that goes for men and women, right? Because some women aren't as supportive. I've had friends in my life when I was in college, Lord have mercy, I had the cutest girlfriend ever. Oh my gosh, she was amazing. She was adorable. Her outfits were slamming. Her heels were everything. Her hair color was bomb. And she hated men. She hated them. She had one, hated them. So anytime I went to her with a problem, it was like, you know, you can fill in the blanks. All men are dogs, they're trash. And I'm like, well, that's not going to help us with our situation right now. So I think it really depends on both sides. Let's see, we have some more comments. Hold on. Randall says that it matters to be open and honest to your friends about everything. Usually the stories get skewed to that person's point of view. That's very true. That's very true. And we've got to create one of the, and to that point, that's one of the reasons why I created this men's group called The Cave for Men, which is on Facebook, because I'm not trying to lead men anywhere. But I do know that when it comes to safe spaces, women have the men outnumbered, I feel, in terms of being vulnerable, in terms of being able to break down and cry, in terms of an emotional display. I think that we women have that on lock, and we have you guys outnumbered because it is okay for a woman to break down and cry. I'm not saying that it's not okay for a man to do it, but literally, y'all, I've sat in sessions with men with tears streaming down their face, and the woman that they've chosen to be with didn't even notice. And that just completely breaks my heart. Gosh, we got a whole conversation going over here. This is amazing. Ooh, this is good. This is good. So everything's about vulnerability. Everything's about conversation. Everything's about grieving. And the one thing is, there is no one formula for healing. Some people are going to heal and become their best selves within a relationship, after another relationship. Some people are going to heal and they're going to scoot on down the road. It really just depends. It's subjective, and we've got to let it be subjective. That being said, what kind of questions? Okay, I'm gonna frame this up, Sequoia. You're an actor, so you meet a Lawrence. He says, you know, I've just gotten out of a relationship, maybe 3 to 6 months ago. My girlfriend cheated on me, et cetera, et cetera. I just left. What kind of questions are you asking this man to figure out, okay, where is he in accordance to what I want?
That's funny.
Just threw you in there, girl. You in there.
You did, and it's kind of, yeah, it's funny. I think one of the things that you really want to know is, where are they in their process? Like, what steps have they taken to process the death of the relationship? For one, is the relationship really truly over for them, or is this just a break? Is there a possibility that they could possibly rekindle? Because what I don't want to do is get into something with someone that is still truly into someone else. That's not fair to either of us. It's not fair to them, but it's also not fair to me. And I just don't want to be in that part, because then that puts me in the cycle, and it just becomes this the cycle of everybody going around hurting everybody, right? Mm-hmm. But just really making sure that they're truly over it, making sure that they've truly processed the end of that relationship, making sure that they've taken time to see what they can learn from the relationship. Mm-hmm. And what things that they think they would have done differently in the relationship. Because it's not just about, well, you know, she did this and she did that and whatever. Well, what could you have done differently? And how do you see your role in it? Because I think when my ex and I first broke up, it's easy to talk about what the other person did. It
Absolutely.
Really. But now, 3 years later, I find myself saying, you know what, when I was in the relationship, I didn't do this. I didn't ask these questions. I wasn't honest, not meaning I lied, but I just wasn't honest with myself in the question. Something would bother me and I wouldn't be honest about the fact that it bothered me. So I want to make sure that I'm doing that now, right? So taking that inventory, but asking them, how are you taking inventory of the things that you could do differently, or the things that you could do better, or how you can help make whatever relationship we have moving forward successful based on what you've learned from your last relationship.
Okay. Mark, what are your thoughts on that?
Man, that sounds like an exam, man. I
I mean,
think,
she's not gonna ask all of those at one time. I mean,
I don't know. It sounds like, like right then, here, fill this out. Give me your,
I think you ask them in different ways. Like you may not pose it exactly.
You got hand claps, Sequoia.
You may not pose it exactly in that, frame it exactly in that way. And you can only ask men one question at a time. Because if you ask men multiple questions at a time, they're not going to answer any of them but one anyway.
They're not going to remember, child. Just let it go. Yeah.
I think it's like this. I mean, I think if your relationship or whatever relationship you have, period, no matter what it is, it has to grow. I think at times people put time limits on certain things to be in certain places at certain times. And if they're not there, it's like just a waste of time. It's kind of like you got to get to know somebody. Like, I think that, I've been married like 21 years. So, this whole dating scene, like you said earlier, I'm pretty much out of it. Not pretty much, I'm out of it. But, and I don't know how I would react with something new, except for the fact that, I'm me. And so if I'm gonna be in a relationship with anybody for any purpose, there are certain things that I look at, not just personal relationships with people, business relationships with people, whatever it is. I'm gonna be how I am throughout those particular relationships. There's gonna be a basis. So even though one may eventually become more than the others, there's a certain way that I'm gonna attack or deal with each one of those types of situations. But the baseline is going to be the same. If I don't like something on this side, I probably don't like it all the way through. It doesn't matter which way it's coming from or from which relationship that it's coming from. And so I think the more that you sit back and take your time and you learn about those particular types of relationships, whatever relationship it is, it's going to reveal itself to you to where it's not going to be about, hey, if I got out of this relationship, am I healed? Am I healed enough to move forward? I may not even know, but my whole objective may be to move forward, and that means I got to get away. I'm getting away from it, and I'm trying to go back into a normal way of life. I'm not going to sit back and replay everything about that past relationship that I could have done differently, or I could have done that I did right or that I did wrong. I have to go in and say, okay, here's what I learned. And so maybe the next time that situation comes up, maybe I'll behave a different way.
Okay. I mean, I think that, okay, so we got so many comments, y'all. So Malik says, and I think he's speaking to Sequoia's part about the learning the lessons. We were saying that, whoa, that went really fast. That also comes with maturity to be able to reflect on what your part was that you had in the breakdown of the relationship. I think that's true. And I feel like people always ask me the question, when I'm coaching them, because I do relationship coaching, premarital, marital, premarital singles, as well as premarital couples. And so, a lot of times people will ask me, well, how do you know if you're ready for your next relationship or for your next marriage? And I've always said, when you can articulate what happened to the relationship without it being all their fault. And that was something that you just said as well, Sequoia. And so Bernadette says the best question that her husband asked before they ever started dating was, what did you do wrong? It took her back, but it was the best question to help her heal and process. And so here we are, still looking at the subjectiveness. Thank you, Bernadette. Thank you, Malik, and Natasha as well. I think if we take anything from this conversation, it's literally the healing part being subjective. However, we have to be diligent. If we don't want to be a rebound, then we have to be diligent about not being a rebound. However, I think the post-relationship understandings that we've been given as women definitely have some absolutes in it. And from what I'm hearing from you guys, the person could be 6 months, 3 months out of a relationship, and they may be ready to invest in something. or they may need more time to invest in something. And you have to decide what role you want to play in that, and if they're capable of playing the role that you need them to play in, or that you want them to play in your life. Am I hearing that correctly?
Time is neutral. I think we get caught up on the idea of time, and idea of there needs to be a certain amount of time between a relationship, or there needs to be this certain amount of time that we're together, or we need to know each other a certain amount of time before we decide to be in a relationship with each other. But time truly is neutral. You can have conversations with people, and you talk for hours, every day, and you know more about that person because you've talked for hours every day than you know about the person that you've known a year that you haven't talked to for that amount of time. So I think time is truly neutral. I think it's about the what you seek to get out of the relationship and what you put into the relationship. And I think once we get to that point where we recognize that, then I think we can start to make some of those better choices for ourselves.
Ooh, that's good. And you have a fan. I don't know if you know Bernadette. Bernadette says, time is fluid in healing. And I always say, all we have is now. I believe in spiritual diversity. And so all we have is now. And I think we have to, I hate the term we have to as a coach, that just really chafes me. But I think it's to our advantage to allow people to heal in their own time, and not say, well, it's only been 6 months. Oh, well, it's only been 6 weeks. Well, it's only been, and try to dismiss them, because honestly, and here's the other part, and I know we didn't sign up for this, but I'm gonna go ahead and say it, right? Because these are my healing conversations. I can say whatever I want to say, right, y'all? Right. So the reality of the situation is that when it comes to timing, not only is it fluid, but divine timing, if we want to go there, is always perfect and rarely convenient. Yes. Rarely. Like, think about all the times you just got this little nudge to do something, or go here, or go there. It was probably not the most convenient thing, but it might have paid off in beautiful ways. And so I think we have to be a little more open, I think is what I take from this conversation, is that we need to be a little more open, but still be diligent and intentional with what we seek as we're developing relationships with other people.
I agree with that. And I think we have to be honest with ourselves. Shortly after my ex and I broke up, I did have a rebound. And
Sequoia, go. Sorry.
I think back on it differently now than I thought on it at the time. He was not a good person, and he was not a good person for me. That's one piece of it. But I knew that as I was going through it, and I was trying to be open-minded and whatever. But as I think back on it now, and I don't know if it's because I'm older or what it is, but I look at it and I think that he was a person who didn't have good relationships with women. He didn't have a good relationship with his mother. He didn't have a good relationship with his sister. He was used to fighting. He was used to somebody talking crazy. He didn't understand how to just be normal and have a normal conversation, and how to ask questions and how to communicate. He just didn't know how to do that. Right. And I think back on it and I'm like, you know what? I met him at his level, and I would get into, and I'm not a person that gets into it. So it was odd to me that I got into it with him. But I think if I'd met him today, he's not anybody I would have even given a chance. Like we never would have gotten there. And I think it was almost unfair for me to reflect on him as negatively as I did when it first ended, because I have to think about my piece in it too. He was a rebound. That's what he was. And I wasn't in a place where I should have been trying to date him, or giving anybody a chance, especially, situation. And so I think about it, and it's like, maybe he did really like me in his own way. And maybe the things I thought about him being, a user, and him being this, maybe it wasn't his intention, but that's all he knew how to do. But instead of blaming him for being that person, I look back and I take ownership for that, because had I not engaged in that situation, I wouldn't have had to deal with it either. So
See,
Well, you know what?
Sequoia,
Oh, Mark, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
well, no, I just like to add to what she said, because she said some pivotal things in there, because
yeah.
even myself, I have my own personal kind of mantra to myself that I've kind of titled Next Level Living. And Next Level Living for me is about me being kind of dedicated to me, and me being aware of what it is that I'm doing, and me understanding that I'm in control, and I make decisions, and I'm solely responsible for those particular decisions or whatever that I'm at. And one thing that was important that Sequoia just expressed was that she said she met him where he was. And in any relationship that you have with anybody, you have to understand and know that where you meet them may be the best that they're gonna be, and if that's gonna be enough for you, if if you're a woman and you met this guy at his cousin's house and he was sitting on the sofa playing video games, that may be it. That may be who he is. He might not ever be better than that, even though you may think that he has the potential to be that, and vice versa for guys who meet women that, that may be the best she is. And if you can deal with that, then you make a decision. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But the most important thing about any relationship that you have is growth. And if we're not growing every day, then that's something that no one else is going to be able to help us get through. If you don't have it yourself to expand beyond where you are today to be better tomorrow, then it doesn't matter who you're with or what your expectations are. You're just not going to meet it. It's just not going to be there.
Yeah, very true. I think going back to what Sequoia said, one of the greatest mistakes I made, some of you know my story, and what really drove me when I finally succumbed to being a relationship coach was my 10-year relationship. Like literally from the age of 20 to 30, I was in this relationship, and I did not take the time to reset things when we broke up. It was crazy. The timing was off, and I literally went right into another relationship. Now, that could have been good or not. It was not. And the reason why it was not was because I hadn't taken the time to kind of reflect on the last 10 years. I was just like, whoop, my 10 years, let's do this. And what happened was, it wasn't so much about the 10 years. I was just not on my due diligence with the new person, because I was grieving. I was still hurt by the breakup. No, I didn't want to be with him anymore. There's a whole lot of things in that story, a whole lot of ingredients in that mix. But when I moved on to the next relationship, I was just so happy to be in another relationship. I didn't do my due diligence. And so that had its own consequences. So I really think that, and we've got some of the best comments over here. Malik says to be honest with ourselves. Natasha says that there are varying degrees of hurt regardless of gender. Our processes can be different. Randall says men are supposed to be men. Malik says that he asked the females, and you have a right to do this, and I wish more men would understand standards in their lives, but instead of asking about the women, he will ask a female that he meets about the men in their lives. And so he feels like that gives him an understanding of what she might be thinking and how she might relate to a man, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that, let's see, is that Natasha? Natasha says, oh, she's replying to Randall. Hold on, I got to keep scrolling. They're active over here.
But you know what, to his point, I had a conversation a couple of days ago, and the guy asked me, how did he compare to guys that I typically date? And he was like, I don't want to hear about looks at all. I just want to hear in terms of what you know about me now, how do I compare to the guys that you typically date? And I had to sit back and think, well, okay, you compare in this way, and here's how I've learned to understand things and about the guys. It made me understand things about the guys that I've dated. It made me look at it in a different way, which was really interesting, and it was a good practice, I think.
Absolutely. Mark, any parting words? We're going to go ahead and start wrapping this thing up. Mark, you've been our token man for the night, although you got support in the room. I would like to know,
Okay, good.
yay, woo, woo, what do you say? What do you say? How do you summarize the quote unquote unhealing of Lawrence? Is it a thing? Is it not? What do you think?
I don't think it is. I mean, I understand it because I understand. I think that people want him to heal in a way, or if he even needs to heal in a way that they understand it. Like, friend, I remember when my grandmother passed away. When I was really young, I was 15 or 13 or somewhere like that, and I didn't cry at the funeral. I mean, I just didn't have an emotional outburst. It doesn't mean that I didn't grieve. It doesn't mean that I wasn't hurting. It doesn't mean that I didn't understand, because I did.
Right.
But that's just the way that I was, or the way that I am, where those certain things in certain situations don't come out in the most majority way. But that didn't mean that I didn't feel the same thing that my cousins felt, that my brother felt, that my mother felt, or anybody else.
Right.
That I needed to go do something extra to be able to let it out. So I think that you just got to take men or Lawrence for who they are, and because they don't identify emotionally the same way that you identify, it doesn't mean that they're not dealing with the situations, that they're not going through anything. They just have their own way, or we just have our own way of dealing with it. That's just different.
Absolutely. Sequoia, what do you think? The unhealing of Lawrence, is it a thing?
I think that he's doing what he needs to do for him, and his journey is his own, and we all have to take our own journeys through that. One thing that I find that's interesting with him, and I find it interesting because I've seen it play out in different ways, is that the idea of being friends with your ex and what that means, and what that means for your future relationships. And I think that's going to be interesting to see how that continues to play out with him. And I don't know that it means that he's not healed. I don't know what it means for them, because it seems like they're foreshadowing some stuff. But I think that that's an interesting thing to tackle too, when you're talking about healing and all of that. So.
Absolutely. Well, I've asked if they want a part 2, so we might have to do this again. As far as my thoughts on the unhealing of Lawrence, of course I titled it that because I'm all about healing, but I still believe, and the men in my life have really shown me that healing is subjective. I have one friend that got divorced and got remarried, and it's been, within, let's see, state of Texas, 60 days, 31 days after you get divorced, you can get remarried. I think he got remarried day 35. So, at the end of the day, and it works. I think we all have to be willing, this is the coaching me talking, I think we all have to be willing to see the subjectiveness in healing, to be willing to ask real questions when we meet someone, and to know what we want. Have we healed? Are we attracting people who are unhealed because we haven't healed? Is this a wound-worthy relationship, or is it just a worthy relationship, period? So nevertheless, we're going to get out of this. Guys, tell them where they can reach you, how they can get some stock, how they can get some attorneyness. Yeah, I made that word up. Let them know so we can get out of here.
All right, you can catch up with me at mochastock.com, MOCHASTOCK.com for stock stuff. Everything else, you can reach me at sequoiahouston.com, SEQUOIA, Houston, like the city. And all of my social media handles across the internet are at Sequoia Houston.
All right, Mark, what you got?
Great. Well,
lawyering.
Yeah, I don't know if they, want any lawyering from a family law perspective, but we do a lot of,
I don't know.
we do a lot of other things. So you can reach me, of course, on all my social media. It's just Mark with a K, because not with a C or a Q. It's Mark with a K, D Sonnier, SONNIER. Also, I can be reached through my law firm. My email address is the same as Mark at THEMDSlaw.com. So shoot me an email and we'll talk about it.
Awesome. Well, listen, I want to give special thanks to everyone who showed up, to Bernadette, to Malik, to Randall, to Natasha, to Tanya, to I saw the comment, so I'm scrolling, guys, and I have vertigo, so that's gonna make me a little dizzy. To Monroe Roy Bishop, who is the host of Tea with Monroe podcast. Thank you, guys. Chelsea Nicole, just thank you guys for hanging out with us. I think it's important that men and women have these conversations so that we can grow, evolve, mature emotionally, and so that we can build quality relationships, beautiful relationships from a healed space. My name is Stephanie D. McKenzie, and I am the lead coach at the relationship firm as well as the healing firm. And I thank you, as I always do, for loving, learning, and healing with us. Have a beautiful night. There we go.